on freedom over to you. Fellowship.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Dean. I'm an addict.
Hi Dean.
Everyone, thanks Roz for asking me to do this. Thanks to the committee and everyone that makes this meeting possible. First of all, I just want to say it's really good to come and be here in this meeting. As you all know, I'm no longer a Londoner. I live down the south coast and Brighton, and I'm really lucky. I still have ties that bring me back to London, and I specifically make sure on a Wednesday I come here. So thank you, Roz, for this meeting, keeping it going. And I didn't know what I was going to be sharing about. I didn't know at all what I'm going to be sharing about. And I just opened the book and Fellowship came out, and it just sort of like, I thought, yeah, Fellowship, I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, it's a really good reading. One thing I can remember is coming to my first meeting, and the first meeting I went to was in Notting Hill. It was the Prada meeting in Notting Hill, and we turned up there on Thursday. Me and my bestie, best mate there. We turned up there, and then like drama with the bike. What's his name's bike? You knocked it down anyway. Anyway, so we turned up at the meeting, and I did not feel any kind of fellowship at all. I sat in the back there. I hated everyone. I thought everyone was a bunch of cunts. I thought, what the fuck am I doing here? Sat in the back, and also what was really like, what's that? I can't remember what that word. By the way, fucking words don't come out anymore. But anyway, I was just like sitting there mortified because there were people in the room that I knew, or that I knew of, or that knew me, you know, and from like my industry and from my work. And I was like, fucking hell. So I was hating it even more, you know. And I sat in the chair, and then I heard the woman doing the chair, and you know, she started talking about going to treatment and being in this treatment centre, and how she didn't want to be there, and how she called her dad, and her dad came in a helicopter and collected her, and they flew out the treatment centre. Remember? Right? And I was like, fucking hell. So I'm sitting there in hatred and like hating everyone, and then my eyes open up because, like, you know, I love a good drama, do you know what I mean, you know? I grew up with Dynasty, grew up with Dallas, like, these women, these sort of dramas I love, you know? And I was like, fucking hell. So I thought, well, I hate these people, but, you know, if I can come back and hear these stories for free, I thought, and I was kind of thinking, well, this is why they all come here, you know? And then I heard someone say, if you didn't like this meeting, there's other meetings you can go to. And I know I'm going to cry telling this story, but anyway, there's other meetings that you can go to. And I went to the Friday night meeting in Covent Garden, and I met George. Oh. I thought I'd stop feeling like this, talk. Who has since passed away, and he was a very good friend of mine, and I remember him. I can hear him telling it to me now in that voice, not how he used to speak. Hey, you not Dean. I can hear him telling me. He said, "Hey, what, Dean?" It's like, you know, yeah. He just told me you don't have to like everyone. Do you know what I mean? This is like, you know, losers don't come here. He explained to me how it worked, and that became my home group. And I think it kind of cemented my recovery, because I kept coming back, and more importantly, I started making connections with people, and in my gratitude list I do put in my connections with others in fellowship, because if you can't connect with people doing this shit, it's going to be very difficult to keep it going, you know? Well, for me anyway, I have to have some sort of connection with people that I'm, you know, if I'm doing anything with them or around them. And you know, sitting in the meeting, first of all, so back then I was doing AA. I was doing AA at lunchtimes, and if anyone objects me talking about other fellowships, I'm going to say tough, because I was talking about my experience, okay? But basically, so on a lunchtime, I used to go to Hine Street, 1 o'clock meeting every lunchtime, and I would go there like religiously. I had a commitment actually. I did the tea, not even realising what doing the tea in Hine Street really meant. That's a lot of fucking tea, right? And I did the tea, and you know, I'd sit in that meeting and I would feel like I was sitting in the headmaster's office, or I would feel like I was like, or like that, it's very serious, and I was like, okay, you know, eating my sandwich and shit, and then like I'd go to work. But then in the evenings, I'd go to NA, and me and my mate, we'd meet up and we'd go to meetings, and I felt like I was like, you know how you feel when you're in in the common room in sixth form, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I felt like, did any of you do sixth form? Okay, okay. That's all right. But I felt like one of those kids, you know, like the kind of rebellious ones, you know, in the school that would kind of always get into trouble, but not really get into trouble. The kind of, do you know what I mean? The kind of people that I like hanging with, the kind of people that kind of got me. And I think people in this fellowship did get me, and it was like, wow, you know, and sitting in a meeting, getting identification, you know, that was something I hadn't experienced, because, you know, when I sat in a room full of people, usually it would be in the middle of the mornings, and there'd be some fierce house music playing in the background and lots of drugs happening, do you know what I mean? But like the conversation wasn't very loving and caring and fellowship, do you know what I mean? And so it was all new to me. And then I was encouraged to go for dinner. So on a Friday after the gay meeting on Covent Garden, we would go to and have dinner in Soho, in this really cool, well, it's not really, it was just normal, like, you know, Japanese place, and we just go downstairs, a bunch of us on the table. You know, that debate that goes on for like 20 minutes, where we're gonna eat, you know, and then waiting for people to come to eat, and then waiting for the table and all this shit, and like, you know, and it was, I mean, it's really chaotic, but it seemed to fucking work. And then we sat there, and that's when I started to make connections and friends with people, do you know what I mean? And then some of those friends became like my tribe, you know, and because of those people, I kept coming back, you know? And then I think around like 3 months in, whatever, I was kind of in the fellowship on my own. I was on my own, you know? So I got left behind because someone decided they weren't coming to meetings anymore. Sorry, love, but anyway, so I was like, fucking hell, like, you know, I had to keep coming back, and I knew I wanted to keep coming back, and it's really funny because, like, you know, I knew I had to do this for me, do you know what I mean? So there's something that I had to do, so I kept coming back, and thankfully those people that I met and those connections that I met made it easier to come back, and then eventually I understood what a home group was, what my home meeting, do you know what I mean? And then you know, I mean, back in them days, you would do service, like a couple of you would do the same service, so a couple of you would go to the ASC, a couple of you would do, you know, people would be like, oh, do you want to do London Convention? Oh, what's that? Oh, let's go to the meeting. And then I did and went, and like, fucking hell, that's something else. And you know, it was very, it's very special. And if there's anyone like new or in the early days, or like kind of, you know, even if they're like just kind of in that kind of stuck thing where like you've been coming, because I got to that stage where I was didn't want to come to meetings anymore. I didn't really come to meetings anymore. I had a commitment, and sometimes the commitment I had would be like one of them ASC commitments or LCNA commitments. Like, it doesn't really get me in a meeting every week, like once a month, or do you know what I mean? So it's not really enough. Well, for me, I could see that it wasn't enough because I'd end up going crazy. But doing the like service kept me coming back, you know, and it was, and I think as I've just recently celebrated a birthday, which was it's funny, I wanted to pick up a black keyring last week, but I thought they won't let me. But anyway, so I wanted to pick up. So I know, and it was anyway. So I just picked up, and you know what, like. Because of like doing this and keeping coming back, I haven't got much time left.
No.
Okay, keeping coming back, like 24 years.
Woo!
Right? And do you know what? I think, and I put this down and I say it because people can see if I can do this for 24 years, you can fucking do it. Let me tell you. You know what I mean? Like, if I can do it, you can do it, you know? And because of the fellowship, it's given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. Because I never thought I'd get a man. And I got one. I did. I still got one. I still got him. And that's a whole different ballgame. It really is. And what I've had to learn about that is something else. But what was good about these meetings and the fellowship, it loved me so that I could learn to love myself, so that I can be in a relationship as an equal and not as someone that needs to be there or what, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can fight my, I've got a boundary, and if he comes anywhere near the boundary, he's getting pushed back. Can't even get over that boundary, love. It's like, I'm like, But then there's a part of me as well that's maybe a little bit too much like that, you know? But these are things I'm working on, do you know what I mean? It's like, this is my first ever serious relationship, you know? I got into at the age of 49, right? That was, do you know what I'm saying? So all them years, I left my house, I left home when I was like 18, 19, traveling around, moved to London, all of that stuff, you know, on my own. So I've always been this, you know, the main character in this story. Do you know what I mean? You know, looking out for me and, you know, being, do you know what I'm saying? You're not having to answer or, like, consider having anyone around. And then I meet this guy, you know, who's, I refer to him as a sidekick, but now I stopped doing that now. It's not a sidekick, and it's not Batman and Robin either. It's like, it's, you know, it's equal partnership, and you know, and it's been really, really hard, you know. But do you know when I knew it was the right thing? I remember we went away for a weekend, and I was going back to my place. And I have, because I've got a doggy and everything and all the luggage and all that stuff, and usually one has to carry everything myself and, you know, whatever. But this guy was there and he was like, he helped me. I've never had that before. And that's nice, you know. And that wasn't on my list of things that I wanted. Do you know what I mean? And then, you know, then there's the other things as well. You know, I'm in a, you know, I love my job. I'm in a job that I love, and, you know, I've got my own company, and, you know, and whatever the dramas or whatever the ups and downs with that, I fucking love every single day of it. You know, so I'm happy that way. You know, and I'm really grateful to this fellowship. I really am grateful to this fellowship because of the people around, you know, and most of them are in this room. Do you know what I mean? Like, most of the people are in this room. You know, there's a couple missing. You know, some of them have died. You know, some of them don't really come to meetings so much. But, you know, those are the ones that keep us going back. So I always think, like, if you go to these meetings and you're coming on your own, like, you know, give your number out. You know, take a number. You know, when you hear people going for dinner or whatever, go with them, or go for coffee, just go with them, just tag along, you know, and you know, they have to talk to you eventually. You know, or even just go just to listen 5 minutes. Even just go just to listen, you'd be surprised, you know. And one thing I can definitely like promise as well is like you won't like the laughs that you get, like the laughs that I get in fucking meetings or with my recovery friends, like. Knowing they say it was in stitches, like literally I can be like can't breathe, laughing like, you know, like that, and you know when you have that, the authenticity of that kind of, you know, belly laughter. I've only experienced it here. I don't, you know, even if I'm watching, you know, David Chappelle or whatever, one of them good. I can't get that belly. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he does say some things, but nothing like. I mean, Ross, fucking hell, some of the shit you've come out with. This three here actually, right? I should sign them up and make them a fucking some kind of comedian like three. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's hilarious, hilarious. Remember you and the other Julie? No, what was the big tall one? What? No, the tall one. What's her name? Julie. The two Julie. I used to call them the two Julies. Liz.
That's Liz.
Yeah. You know, but I call them the two Julies. You know what I mean? Because they were hilarious, like fucking hilarious. You know, and then there was like some other ones, you know, because I thought, you know, when you stop drinking and doing drugs and shit and whatever, everything's boring and you can't go out. And then I remember going to my first NA dance and it was at the Egg. But it was fierce. That music was major, and like I know my music, right? And let me tell you, I was like, fuck. And then you know, I'm gonna name people like seeing Sarah and Terry. You know Sarah and Terry, like all kind of like standing there all dolled up and their like makeup and like looking all chic, you know, and then like she's in my phone as Sarah Chic, you know what I'm saying? You know, from like 20 odd years ago, you know, so it's like, yeah, you will meet your tribe in here, but you've got to put yourself out there. And I'll end on this. I remember doing a commitment at LCNA and like my head does this thing where I hate you without even fucking talking to you and like, you know, and this guy was sitting there and I thought, oh, he's a fucking cunt anyway. And I just like, and I thought, Dean, he hasn't even said hello to you. Say hello. And I'm like, oh, hi, how you doing? He's become a good friend of mine for 15 years. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, so it's like sometimes we need to kind of give ourselves or give this process the chance, you know? And yeah, I'm a happy customer. I'm very grateful. And keep coming back. If you know, if this is your first meeting, keep coming back. If you know, if you're like fucking stuck in whatever, just keep coming back. You know, yeah, I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.